Hello and welcome to the wonderful Feel It Friday of the live Inspirational Community Collaboration Show. My name is Markabadi. It's such a pleasure to be able to hold space for people to come on and share their gifts and their insight and their wisdom. So please like, share, do all that fun stuff underneath. We have got Zat Baraka, who is a men's coach and a space holder for the sacred elements of men's circles to enable more balanced integration of masculine and femininity within the beings. Zat Baraka, how are you?
Yes, brother.
How are you?
I'm good, man. Are we on live right now?
We are so live. It was a smooth transition. Let me introduce you, Zat. Zat Baraka is a phenomenal space holder of the sacred masculine, enabling the transition from what had become a patriarchal dominated addiction of men and masculinity into a more holistic, sacred, incorporated way of being. Do you like my sum up?
I like it.
Was it
It's
good?
nice. It's very
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
And you want to say anything else about?
No, it's great. That was awesome.
So and I first met Zat at Bhakti Fest. Actually, I first met you. I think I came to your 50th birthday party. I'm not saying how old you are. Shit.
Oh,
Do you
wow.
remember that? Because
50. Wow.
I think it was yours. It was totally yours. I
Yeah,
had
it was
just
mine.
started working for Bhakti, and
Yeah.
Shri brought me and my girlfriend then and just dropped us off at this random party, which is your birthday party,
Wow.
right? And then left. And then Dave Stringer cornered me for about 2 hours telling me about his grievances with Bhakti Fest.
I think you just came for the free chai. You came for the
chai
free chai
was
and
great.
chapatis.
The chai, I tell you what, that was really a beautiful time for me because I didn't know anyone. I didn't know you. Sort of crashed your birthday party, and I met such wonderful beings then, and it really spoke wonders about you to have these just light beings around you for such a sacred event. And somehow I had crashed, as I said. But
I mean, I'm just so lucky. Yeah. So lucky to have amazing people around. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of people around, everywhere.
Yeah.
But LA, Southern California, there's some pretty amazing people that are, as you know, doing amazing things in the world, creating waves and helping to save this planet. So, yeah.
And that's where you are at the moment in LA.
No, I'm in Ojai, California.
Oh, nice. Michael Brian Baker's there, isn't he?
Michael is here.
Yeah. He was just on the
among
show
other
last week.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Well, extra quiet Ojai right now. Beautiful. It's still green for the time being until the brown sets in, which isn't too far away.
Right.
There's still water in the streams, slowly going down. But to be in quarantine here is pretty. Well, we speak about it every day. How grateful we are to be able to, go into nature, as opposed to I grew up in Los Angeles, so knowing LA, knowing like being trapped in those inner city areas where it's just hot and it's intense. So having nature is pretty amazing. Yeah, I'm grateful.
So tell me what's alive for you at the moment. What are you realizing? I mean, your specialty is to hold space for men and for their evolution. What are you noticing inside your clients and the groups that you're holding about this forced change?
It feels like everything's different, but it's also just the same. Meaning, like it's the same. We all face the same issues as always, and men face the same issues as always, right? With being more emotionally mature, being more emotionally available, having greater capacity to be with our own emotion, with our partner's emotions, and understanding what masculinity is, re-understanding it, reinterpreting what it means to be a man. All of those things that I think, well, the regular things that men always face, all human beings face, is their own, is their own karmic habitual tendencies and their old ways of being. Men have their own certain flavor. Of course, every human being has their own. But what's amazing is when men start to learn about the ways that the male brain works, the way that the male body works, and our programs, it helps to give men a greater context for how to be in the world, right? So understanding that, and then also addressing kind of the current dilemma, which is men having to evolve. And we know that's been an ongoing thing, but especially, through the Me Too movement into where we are now, and men learning to relearn how to be in the world. How do you give someone a compliment at work? What's the right way to relate to a woman at work when she's wearing, nice shoes? Do you say something? Do you not? Like, I'm talking silly, but this is what men are thinking about. How do I relate to women in general? How do I date? What's being aggressive? What's not being aggressive? Do they want me to have that masculine power and be, really directive and take the bold first move of making the first kiss? Or is that considered so these kinds of questions are relevant and important. And so that's why I said it's all new, meaning all the stuff that we're going through, our modern cultural changes, that's all new. Yeah. But then it's also just all the old stuff, all the habits and fears. Some guys have nice guy habits. Some guys have aggressor anger habits. Some guys have, wounding from their fathers. How do they work without? How do they shift and change? And what's new contexts to look at themselves and the world, so that they can begin to shift how they're responding in their relationality. So what's really present for me right now is, just me personally, is empathy. So I'm in that place of introspection around empathy. I'm also training with my teacher right now, specifically around empathy. Pema Khandro Rinpoche is my teacher. And so, and how can that fit into men's work, the whole idea of empathy from a men's work perspective? So we could say there's personal growth work. Everyone can do it, right? Just evolving ourselves, personal growth, spiritual growth, probably interchangeable. And then what is the specific way that men work in men's work that's different than just personal or spiritual growth work? It's through the lens of men's work. So how to relate to empathy through the lens of men's work that's kind of, that's what's present for me right now.
Right. And because people talk about masculinity and femininity almost in exchange of yin and yang, and I know in certain situations I've been talking to couples and trying to help coach them, and I've used the terms masculinity and femininity instead of the term yin and yang. What is it the case that just everyone has this masculinity and femininity, or do men have the sort of the only access to masculinity? What's the ratio? And do we all have 50-50 to start, and then we kind of, society pushes it out, or how's it work?
Yeah, so
exclusive, that was the word. Do men have the exclusive?
When we talk about I personally don't use the term yin and yang in replace of masculine and feminine, because masculine and feminine have very specific connotations. But what we do use interchangeably is man and woman, masculine and feminine. So sometimes a guy will say, yeah, I just really wasn't in my masculine, or sometimes a guy will say, yeah, I just really wasn't in my manliness. So that's equated, right? Being a man is equated with being masculine, being a woman is equated with being feminine, where we know that's not true, because your gender identity is not the same as having masculine or feminine qualities. So when we look at the terms masculine and feminine, it's really just pointing towards qualities or ways of, qualitative ways of being. And there's kind of an agreed upon idea of what masculine traits are, or qualities, or characteristics, and what are feminine traits, qualities, and characteristics. Being a man doesn't mean you have to have these masculine traits, right? Because if you go to some cultures, they're not going to have the same qualities or traits that's considered, powerful or acceptable or wonderful in one culture as they are in another. But in most Western cultures, European, North American cultures, there's kind of an agreed upon idea of what masculine qualities are and what feminine qualities are. Men can have a bunch of either, women can have a bunch of both, right? So the thing I say over and over and over is there's no box and there's no prescription for how you have to be.
Right.
The way I word it is, these traits and qualities are merely meditations on a context for how one wants to be in the world. It's a meditation on a context for how to respond to life, not as a have to, not as a prescription, right? Because when we have a prescription of, well, I'm not being masculine enough, that's not good, she's not going to like me, she's not going to love me, I got to be more masculine, I got to, then we get into suffering because we're not fulfilling the prescription. But they are really wonderful contexts to hold, Mark, because especially when you learn about them and you re-understand them and you reevaluate them, they can be really powerful. Let's say for a guy that his whole life he's been really super nice guy, super people pleaser guy, right?
Yeah.
And he's not had strong expression, he's not spoke up for his desires, he's not been the decision maker, or he's not decision maker, he's not been the directional energy in his relationship. He's always like, okay, hon, sure, I'll do that, whatever you want. Or he's a pleaser. And let's say in his situation, his wife, his partner, it could be gay, straight or bi, is triggered all the time because, like, why can't you decide on something? But he has all these programs and wounds around being expressive, right? So now here he has this idea of a masculine quality. One of the masculine qualities is being directional. And so it's like, okay, this is a meditation on the context that I can play with today. I can play with the context today of, I'm going to be more directional. I'm going to play with directionality when I see my brother, when I see my partner, when I go to work on Zoom. And so these again are contexts that you can play with to shift out of your habitual ways of being. And there's really deep and really more provocative downloads on all these things. They're not just so simple.
Yeah.
But when you get into it, into the nitty gritty of it, it's really, really helpful. Guys really love it tremendously. It changes their lives. And so if you want to just dig a little tiny bit deeper into the masculine and feminine, we could say that masculine qualities and traits are the capacity for directionality, presence. We've heard about men being more present. Presence is a very important one to have as a quality of the masculine. And if we zoom out to kind of the Eastern spiritual teachings, what do we see in the yogic tradition? The masculine, or we'll say consciousness, right? Form and formlessness. Formlessness is consciousness, or Shiva, the masculine container, right? You with me?
You would say the container
Shiva,
is masculine?
Shiva as the embodiment of the masculine, right? Shiva is consciousness. So we could say that consciousness, or presence, all-pervading presence, is a quality of the masculine, a quality. And then the feminine, or Shakti, is all the energy of life. It's emotionality, it's giving birth, it's nurturing, it's food, it's the chaotic power of nature. And so you have consciousness, and then you have energy or radiance, right? Or you have spaciousness, and then you have all the energy that fills that.
And
so
how do these two interact together? Because in my conception, the feminine is the womb within which the arrow, the masculine, exists within the circle.
well, yeah, if you look at the symbology, I mean, even in Tibetan Buddhism, you have the bell and you have the vajra and you have the womb. But if we're going into the yogic realms, what do you see in Shiva's hair? Spouting out of his hair is the Ganga, right? Water is pouring out of his locks, because in that creation myth, Gangama, or Shakti, the feminine, was just wild water destroying the earth. Because of the sheer power of the feminine Shakti, of the water, the water or the womb, the great ocean where life comes from, was wild, destroying the earth. So Shiva contained it in consciousness.
Gave it
simple
direction.
way to look at it is the feminine is the water. The feminine traits are the water in the river, and the banks of the river is the masculine.
That makes
so the container
sense, yeah.
and the energy.
Yeah, yeah.
So that may be a nice way to look at it. And if we go to the science aspect of it, about how the male brain is actually different than the female brain, not my opinion. Books, scientific research that shows how the male brain develops differently in the different processing centers in the brain, and how the male brain processes different than the feminine brain. The feminine brain is created to be relational, emotional, and then the masculine brain is actually created to be logic-based and goal-oriented, right? So those are all kind of, if we look at the agreed-upon traits, and then if we look at the biology, those things all fit together quite beautifully.
So, and I like John Gray's work on the brain chemistry as well.
Yeah.
You know, men are from Mars, women from Venus. I saw him talk a long time ago. It was very good. I just wrote his name down actually. So, with regards to balance, you know, this notion seems to be in yoga and in in yogic traditions that balance is key. Now, what does balance look like in the average man? Is it, because I often think, like, you know, I obviously have feminine qualities to me, as well as masculine qualities, and there's a certain ebb and flow as the day goes on, and in response to the environment. You know, if I'm met with a very strong masculine force trying to hurt me, then I'm sure that will raise out of me a greater proportion of masculinity in order to, you know, meet it. So I suppose the question is, what is the average balance in a man? What's an average masculinity, femininity balance?
So first, what I would say, Mark, is it's not really. I would say first, it's not important.
Right.
I just want to state that out loud, because.
But balance is important, right? Balance is important.
Balance is important. I'm saying knowing how masculine you should be or how feminine you should be is not really important.
Right.
And the idea of using these idea of masculine and feminine can be effective and helpful. But until a man really understands it, it can be more damaging, because they're usually going off of their conditioning of what being a man means. You have to be this kind of masculine.
As are women, right? Women are also going off.
Women are the same, absolutely. Women are the same thing, and how they should be feminine, and also women are programmed in how their men are supposed to be masculine, and men are programmed in how their women are supposed to be feminine.
Right.
So the idea is really to obliterate all that and look at, what is my shit? Like, what are my wounds, my issues, my traumas, my tendencies, my habits? Where do I need some room for improvement, for shifting? What could I play with? You know, as I use the example of the classic people pleaser nice guy, what could he play with as a different context for being in the world? So a nice guy can go into work and someone says, I need you to do this for me. Then someone says, you need to do this for me. He's like, okay, I'll do it. It's not that the guy needs to sit there and go, okay, I need to be more masculine now. But if he's really studying himself and understanding himself and his habitual tendencies, he can use that context of, let's say, directionality, or let's say kind of the fierceness of the masculine. Feminine can be fierce as well, but that directional fierceness or the
Right.
warriorship as a context to be in his body and to change how he's responding to life. In terms of kind of the percent, does that make sense?
Yeah,
to you?
absolutely.
Yeah.
He's looking at where his habitual tendencies are more common, and he's going,
Yeah.
right, I'm more prone to just say yes, yes, yes. So in order to create a greater balance out of the habitual addiction of my own programming, I'm going to look to where I'm most and go a bit more of where I'm least.
Yeah, it's literally you just practicing or playing with some different energetics to shift you out of the places that make you feel really crappy, which may be your everyday saying yes to everyone and getting steamrolled and stepped on by everyone. And the guy who does that, it doesn't feel good. So this is just one way there's many approaches that we have to work on in personal growth. This is not the only approach, but if we're having the conversation about masculine and feminine, this is one way. And we could call this, a type of embodiment practice where you get in our body and we play with different ways of responding to life inside of being aware of our body and responding to life.
And are we
as
always...
far as
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are we always looking...
I was just gonna...
Yeah, go on.
I wanted to just go to the percentage thing.
Yes.
Because you asked about that. So, I would say about 90% to 95% of the men that come to the work over all the years that I've been working with are men that want to work on re-understanding, reintegrating, and growing themselves in the area of masculinity. I've not had a man come and say, I want to be more feminine. I've just not had I've had men come and say, I want to be more compassionate. I'm pretty hard ass. I have steel walls up. I'm not a very empathetic person. I've had men say that. But pretty much all the men that come to the work are identified as being, they're more identified with being masculine. That's not to say that they're not sensitive, because I get plenty of sensitive, sweet, new agey spiritual guys that are very sensitive, very feeling, very empathetic, and they don't necessarily want to be tough macho guys, but they want to understand, well, what is masculinity? How can I play with that more? How could I enhance that more in myself? Because I don't really have very much masculine qualities, and I'd like to look into that. So every man that comes to the work is more interested in understanding and healing and reinterpreting and practicing with masculine traits, which is not to say that they're negating feminine traits.
Right.
Because as you become a more healed, holistic man, the natural outcropping of that is what? To be more compassionate, empathetic, caring, sensitive, to have more skillfulness in relationality, to be with your own emotion.
Are those all feminine qualities?
So we could say that feminine traits are...
like, is empathy a feminine trait?
I would say that relationality, interconnectedness is a more feminine way of being. The capacity for pleasure or the capacity for feeling. Even if you read the book, The Female Brain, I think her name is Luzanne Briand, she talks, and she's a neuroscientist or a research scientist, talks about how the female brain is programmed to feel more. I think it's the emotional part of the brain. What is that? The amygdala.
The amygdala, yeah.
You have more capacity. The female brain has more capacity for accessing emotion than the male brain does. That's not to say that all women are more feeling, because a woman could be raised by a single father who's very logic-based, and she could be programmed in that way. But as far as feminine traits go, we could say kind of the agreed-upon feminine qualities, traits or characteristics would be the capacity to feel.
So that's empathy, right?
Huh?
Empathy? Because that's...
Yeah.
So in your initial thing, you said you're working on empathy.
Yes.
So are you working on your feminine side in order to balance your masculine side?
I don't think about it quite. Honestly, I really just don't think about it like that. I may think about again, I just use these traits as a context to look at myself in different situations. I don't walk around saying, oh, I'm not being masculine now. I may say, oh, I'm being hyper directional today. I'm being too pushy. I'm being hyper directional, which may border on, anger, or may border into that energy. Is that masculine? Not necessarily. It may be just anger.
Yeah. I mean, because
anger is not a masculine trait. Anger is an emotion.
Right. And one of I wanted to ask a question in a minute, but what sometimes I find myself, if I'm doing something and I'm responding in a certain way, I can be responding in too much of a masculine way, and I say, oh, I need to be a bit more feminine now. I need to sit back and breathe and stop the direction, stop the location of my response, and kind of sit and take it all in. And so I also don't find myself saying I need to be more masculine, but I do find myself saying to myself, I need to be more feminine now. I need to sit within the observer space.
Yeah. Well, the observer space is actually consciousness, which is a masculine, because when you think about the average woman, and I use this example all the time, when a woman gets stressed, let's say a man and a woman, we'll use a heterosexual situation, a man and a woman get into an argument. The woman gets triggered by him. What does most women want to do? Do most women want to go in the garage and work on their motorcycle and not be bothered and be left alone?
No, they want to talk about it.
They want to talk about it. They call their girlfriends. They want to talk about it with you.
Yeah.
They want to be relational. They want, they may have more emotionality.
Yeah.
Most men are not going to go and call their buddies. They're not going to be in the family and talking. We need to work this out not most men, right?
Yeah.
Most men like space. They want to be alone. This whole idea of the masculine imperative of freedom. Leave me alone. Let me be alone. Let me zone out on sports.
Look at a big newspaper or something. Yeah.
So again, we're talking generalities, but these generalities are true. I mean, if I could sit and be alone and do nothing and just sit in consciousness for long periods of time, I'd be very happy. That would be awesome for me, to just sit and be alone and do nothing.
Yeah. I first heard John Gray talk about this with regards to the evolution of life and where we spent most of our time as humans. What were men doing? They were out hunting and, waiting for the tiger and being small. And then if they were stressed in the jungle, it would be because something there was dangerous. And so the best way for them to relieve the stress would be to stay small and quiet and not talk about it and just be by themselves, just hide.
Yeah, there's that lens. David Data, he's one of my teachers. I'm obviously influenced by his work. But, these teachings are also throughout the Tantras, Kashmir Shaivism, the whole creation myth of in Kashmir Shaivism of Shiva and Shakti and the play of the feminine and the masculine and how the world was created. All these teachings come through that lens anyways. But I don't know if we kind of got lost in that conversation, but what's most important for me around all of this is how can it be applicable in everyday life for a man? That's the most important thing. I don't care about the theories so much. And so an example might be modern women are, as we know, they're graduating more from medical institutions. They're getting more executive jobs. Women are independent. They're earning their money. They don't need men to do anything for them. This is the world the way it should be. Women are independent. And so along with that, women are taking on more of the masculine qualities, being directional, being goal-oriented, being a little less relational, wanting to complete tasks and be successful, right? And so in a relationship, perhaps a woman who works on a computer all day, who's hyper-focused, achieving goals, and then her man comes into the space, hey, honey, do you want to have dinner? And she's hyper masculine, right? Her goal orientation, logic-based, moving towards something. Her response to him may be more in that moment, a more masculine style way of communication. Let me finish this stuff. I'm going to get this done, and then I'll talk to you. And the guy's like, oh, I just wish she would be more connected with me. I want her to be more, you know. And so then how can that man respond to his partner, to his wife, or to his woman? And so this is where some of these teachings can come in. If he responds to her in a very feminine way,
right,
it may drive her further into her masculine.
Yeah.
Like he comes up and is like, come on, honey, let me just rub your back. Hey, leave me alone. I need to finish getting this thing done, right? Yeah. So again, these things that we're talking about can be really helpful as a, you know, as a place to practice with. That's ultimately what it is. It's not a box. It's not a prescription. It's a place to practice with and try different things in your relationship, with yourself, if you're a single person, at work, with your coworkers, as a way to free yourself from your habitual tendencies.
And of course, you know, in response to things which you feel, you know, if it's too masculine or too feminine from either man or woman, it doesn't matter. But if it's too much of one, a response could be to trump them in that. So let's say they're being too masculine. Yeah. You could trump them and be more masculine.
Oh, it's very common.
Right.
I see that a lot.
Yeah, or you could go the other way, right?
Go ahead.
No, I wanted to just finish that. Or you could go the other way. And so it's this tactical...
It's called inversion.
Right.
Yeah, I have guys that say, you know, I've been trying to out-masculinize my woman. I'm like, you're trying to out-masculinize. Okay. I mean, that's not really the approach. You know, that actually just sounds like manipulation, or, you know, it sounds like trying to get your needs met, or trying to, you know, get someone to act a certain way. The goal is there's no goal of out-masculinizing, but there is a very common dynamic in so many modern relationships where men have become more of the feminine essence person in the relationship, and the woman has taken on more of the kind of the masculine qualities. Not that she's being manly, but that she's taken on more of the masculine qualities, because that's part of now also our societal program for women, right? Is around, you can do what you want, you can achieve, you can do anything that you want. And so men are kind of lost in this limbo place of, what do I do? How do I act? Should I not act too masculine for her? Is that going to bug her? Or if I'm too feminine, then like if I'm being too like emotional and sensitive, then she gets turned off by me. So there's a lot of questions in here for men. And
do you think there's too much thinking about it and less kind of dancing with it? I mean, do you encourage people to like go into the intellect and try and analyze what's going on?
Well, I think it's important, because that's why so many guys come to the work. They want to understand, you know, why their relationship isn't working. Why does my woman get pissed off at me all the time? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know what I'm saying wrong. I'm kind. I'm sensitive to her needs, but she's still like unhappy about this, and I don't know what to do. And then I get mad at her. And so they come for real reasons, relational reasons. And so it is important to understand these ideas, but it's also equally important to learn how to practice, you know, to, you know, use these different approaches. Like sometimes you have to heal a wound around how you were raised to be a man based on how your father modeled it for you. So if your father modeled relating to anger by hiding in the bedroom when he gets angry so that no one sees it because anger is not acceptable in your house, that's how you're programmed. And so your relationship to masculinity is based on the modeling of your father. And your father modeled, well, the way you're a man, and the way you man up is you don't dare ever lash out at anyone. Anger is not acceptable. And so that becomes then your mode of relating to the world in your version of masculinity.
You know, I feel I had an interesting upbringing, in the sense that my parents were divorced in the traditional Jewish way when I was 4 or whatever, and and my mum is one of those Margaret Thatcher characters, these 80s power women, you know, criminal lawyer, had 5 kids, did everything, cooked, cleaned, blah blah blah, better man than the men. And my dad is a little soft, fat Zen Buddha sweetie, and because my parents were separated, I felt I got my feminine side from my dad and my masculine side from my mum, which in it I felt gave me some sort of weird balance routine, because I could see that from both sides. As such, I feel that a lot of my masculine role models have come from my mother. Is that possible? Because I have a lot of traits similar to my mum.
Yeah, we're a mirror of our parents, and our relationships are a mirror of our parental relationship. So yeah, your dad modeled not necessarily masculinity, but your dad modeled for you, this is how you should be a man. He didn't maybe consciously say that, but you watched him and he modeled that. And then your mom modeled, this is the kind of woman that you should be with, because that's what we're always seeking, right? If we look at the imago theory of Harville Hendricks, this is what we're always seeking, is to resolve our parental relationships. So your mom modeled the kind of woman that you're going to eventually want to be with, or the inversion of her. That can happen too.
Yeah, to counterbalance. I mean, what I find is that when those properties of my mother come up in women, I meet them with my mother. So like I do the counterbalance. Like, you want to see power? This is power. And I get that from my mum. That force, that thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I would really like to just be like my dad, is a big softie. But he gets controlled by the strong feminine, all because of past things. But
there's a lot in there too, and also you may have saw your dad as a pushover, and so you wanted to rebel against that, and you said at some point, I don't ever want to be like that. Not ever, but you said, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be pushed around, or I don't want to be, controlled. And so, you took on more of your mom's traits. That's absolutely. But generally, our same-sex parent is where we get a majority of that influence. That's not to say that our opposite-sex parent doesn't influence how we are in the world. Obviously, it's huge, right?
Right.
So men marry their mother, if we're talking heterosexual, or even if you're homosexual. Men marry their mother and women marry their father. And that's the idea of imago, or the image. We're drawn towards that. We're drawn towards those traits. Subconsciously drawn towards those traits, because that's what we're used to.
It's very Freudian,
karma?
Isn't it?
Karma is being drawn towards what we're used to repeatedly, over and over.
And what about the notion that we become like our parent?
100%.
So then, if we're drawn towards our opposite, then by default, are we setting ourselves up to fall into the category of our same-sex parent?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in this particularly. This is really work. Harville Hendricks is really great in this work.
Who's that?
Harville Hendricks, who wrote Getting the Love You Want, Imago Therapy. He's the founder of that. And his wife, I think it's Helen Hunt Hendricks. But yes, that is what we're doing. Why do you think couples always have dovetailing issues? Couples have those perfect issues. One person is highly aloof, unemotional. The other person is highly grasping and needy. The more needy they are, the more aloof. The more aloof they are, the more needy. Perfect fit for having a karmic relationship, right? It can be the man or the woman. One person has severe abandonment issues. The other person has severe feeling trapped issues or freedom issues. They trigger each other all the time. Hey, you didn't look at me when I came home. What's going on? Nothing. I just got home too. What do you mean? I didn't do anything, And then little triggers and then little arguments happen out of nothing, out of our needs not being met. And so that is such a perfect mirror of our parental relationship. And for some people, they don't see it because it's actually inverted. So if you have a really loud, angry father, you may hate that. And so you actually may become super quiet and reserved. But most of the time, I see it's not the inversion. Most of the time, we take on those traits. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So and so if is it really our joy that we should be like aiming towards? Like, what makes us feel joy?
I think that's a personal thing. Um, I mean, I just have my own personal mission and my own purpose, and you know what I'm working toward. Um, I mean, ultimately, my own personal work is about being a more loving, passionate being. How can I bring more love into the world? How can I grow myself so I can offer myself in a loving way and be an awakened, loving being? I mean, that's kind of the simplest way to put it. And if we look at the foundation of what most people who are in personal spiritual growth, what do we all want? It's the same thing. We just all have our own different flavors of that. Um, the beauty of men's work is that there's all these beautiful different ways and kind of I just keep calling them meditations on ways of being that can really help a man to feel powerful, to feel free, to feel full, to feel like he's living a purposeful life and he's giving a part of himself in the world and not, you know, not playing small. And all those things lead to us not being very happy. I mean, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. I'm the most fulfilled. And I mean, if you want to say the most balanced than I've ever been, I mean, I would hope so.
Right.
But absolutely right now, more than ever before. What about you?
Yeah, I feel great in these days. You know, my practices of meditation, so sitting in the meditation in the neutrality, really helps me come back to witnessing the ebbs and flows that my masculinity and femininity goes through on an interactive basis. I think the real key is to become aware of your own discomfort when the environment comes. You know, the environment comes and it presents something. The sooner you can go, oh, that makes me feel shit, or that feels uncomfortable, then the sooner you have a grasp of what is going on in the interaction and may be able to not manipulate, but change it, rotate it.
Well, that's the power in men's work, is that it really, you know, one of the ways we kind of view it is one aspect of men's work is a little bit like you're coming into the dojo, you know, like you're coming into the Kung Fu dojo where you're going to practice. And when you practice with other men, there's no women in the space, and you are getting reflection and feedback. You're going deep into self-inquiry, into yourself, going deep through different processes and practices, getting feedback and practicing over and over again in these different modalities that we teach through Men's Wisdom Work, which is my organization. It's a very radical experience for guys. It's very, very different than just going in and I'm a meditator. I mean, I'm almost 21-year Buddhist practitioner. But going into the dojo of men's work is a very unique and extremely powerful, provocative, and unique experience.
And what specifically is different than being in an equally open group of mixed men and women exploring consciousness?
Well, for one, there's no women. And there's a different biology for man when he's in a space with only men. There's a different biological trigger that happens when he's in tribe with other men. You would think that men might be more protective around other men because you can't be vulnerable because it's a man and he can attack you. But actually, the idea is that if the essential quality of the masculine is consciousness, or spaciousness or presence, if that's the kind of primary quality of the masculine, not aloofness, I mean, is Shiva aloof? No, Shiva's all pervading consciousness. It's everything. It's right.
Yeah.
And so when consciousness meets consciousness, it deepens. They deepen together. So when men come into a space, they actually deepen together. If a woman walks in, there's a biological response, even if you're not a supercharged sexual being and you don't have that, like, hunting mentality like a lot of men have. There's still a biological response. Oh, there's a feminine creature in the room. Your biology changes. You go into one of these other modes, whether it's protector mode, or whether it's sexual mode, like, oh, I'm turned on by that, even though you may not be leering or looking at her saying that. You still have a response in your body. It's a feminine creature. It's a female creature. It's a different response than a male creature. Right. So just being in a space with men only helps men to deepen into their own masculine consciousness, and also because of the nature of the space, because it's a very safely held space. Mm-hmm. Look, men's groups are not just guys together hugging and crying, talking about our feelings. Sure, that's some of it, but the context that I work with is both equally empathetic and compassion, and it's also equally kind of iron against iron sharpens the sword. You have to practice, and you work with other men, and you get feedback. You do your deep inner work. You become transparent and vulnerable. You face your inner demons with other brothers loving you, and that goes on and that goes on. You keep practicing with all these different practices and tools and modalities. It's a very, very powerful and unique cauldron for transformation to happen. I mean, guys walk out all the time saying, this is the most powerful experience I've ever had in my life. Not only in my men's work, but in lots of different men's work, because of the power of being with other men. If you're in a well-facilitated space, I've had guys that have come in completely broken, suicidal, not completely confused, at the end of their wits, and they come into like a 3-day men's immersion or a 4-day men's immersion, and they come out like, wow, that feels like years ago, like they've rediscovered a whole different aspect of themselves. Yes, they had peak moments throughout these 3 or 4 days. There's many peak moments like on any retreat, but the depth of the work and the power of having other brothers, tribe around you, is extremely transformative.
Yeah, wonderfully explained. Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you do on that front. I mean, holding that space for empowerment of people is, there's no greater service, I believe.
It's not easy.
do you think that equally women's groups, where it's just women, it has got an equal amount of importance and power?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for women, but I mean, I can speak for the women that I know that say that their women's work is, of course, co-ed work is extremely powerful. Absolutely. Without a doubt, when you're doing co-ed relationality work, extremely powerful. Better, which one's better? I can't say, but I know that for men, before they can go into a co-ed space and be able to practice with women, they need to have foundation.
Right.
It's kind of like before you go into the Kung Fu sparring competition, you better just practice in your dojo first to prepare yourself to be with all these feminine or these women, these relational beings.
Right.
But yeah, women being in solidarity with other women without having a man in there that can trigger biological protection mechanisms in them, do the deep work to propel themselves also to show up for their beloved. Absolutely, yeah.
How does this very difficult scenario happen now that we're going through with the emergence of the trans population, of the gay, the queer, all the cross-genderal beings? How does that relate? I mean, it's a very touchy and difficult subject, as simply put, with like, what toilets do these trans beings go into? But how does it relate? If you had a previous a trans man
Yeah.
want to come to your group?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a trans man right now that I'm talking to. I've had plenty of trans men at workshops at different places that I've taught. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the only prerequisite for coming to a men's group, is that you have to be identified as a man.
Right.
And
does that bypass the biological triggering?
Are you saying does that trigger other men who are born men with the biology? Penis and...
Well, so we were talking about, the sacredness of having just men in a group enables the biological stimulus that happens when a woman comes in to not be present. But having a trans man,
I haven't seen it affect the space at all.
Right, it's fascinating that.
No, I have not seen it affect the space at all. It's actually deep in the space, because there's an honoring of that person that has the courage to come in, because it could be an awkward situation. Absolutely. For being the only white person, or being the only black person, or being the only. I mean, I've never had two trans men in a workshop. I've had multiple on different occasions. I've had one, but being the only person in there who is trans could be uncomfortable, I might imagine. Yeah. But it's never shifted the space at all. Lots of gay men come in. I mean, I have my men's coach training that starts May 27th. That's the next program. It's a very powerful 6-month men's coach training program in men's deep inner work. And we've had many gay men in it, gay, bisexual, in the past. So this work is not for only one type of man. And this, again, since we're not teaching how to live in a box of masculinity or a box of a man,
right,
it is based on personal and spiritual growth. Yes, we do have concepts that we bring in, but the concepts are there as a way to practice, not as a way that you have to be. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a wonderful answer. And even to the point where the trans man, it doesn't disrupt the men's group, but in fact finds out a way to deepen it. And, it might be very interesting and important work for trans males or trans men to start to reincorporate their identity with other men.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what someone just said to me recently. I had a trans man about 4 or 5 days ago I was speaking with on various subjects, and they came to one of my workshops at a festival. I think it was Beloved Festival or something many years ago, and they had a peak experience in there. And, well, imagine if your whole life you were a woman, but you felt you were a man, and then you got into your teens or your early 20s, and then you went through your transition. Well, no one's trained you in how to be a man.
Right.
You've been trained in how to be a woman.
Right.
So there'd be a big learning curve, right?
Yeah.
So there'd be a lot of learning that would happen.
Absolutely.
So it's a great place. It's a great place to come and do that with other loving, compassionate, open men. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Zat, thanks for coming on, mate. It's been great and fascinating, and I love the work you're doing. Tell us about some of the stuff you're doing. You've got courses coming up, and have you got online programs?
Yeah, for any man that has an interest in leading men's work or in being a men's coach, which doesn't mean that you have to only coach men, but it's a very provocative, holistic training that uses many modalities from mindfulness traditions, Tibetan Buddhism, as well as spiritual psychology, depth psychology, Western depth psychology-based men's work, shadow work, the traditional Western men's work, as well as therapeutic approaches and coaching. So we're teaching men how to be coaches and or bring us into leadership. Even I have men who are insurance agents that want to learn how to be better leaders in their companies. And so it's a 6-month in-depth deep dive into the art of men's coaching. That starts May 27th. Applications are open right now on menswisdomwork.com, menswisdomwork.com. And again, that starts May 27th. And that's what we have going on right now. And then we also have a free men's group online right now that we're offering every Thursday at 12 Pacific time. That's also at menswisdomwork.com. A free online men's group. It's for we have guys from all over the world show up.
Yeah.
And then we also have a donation-based men's practice group online on Zoom. It's just donation-based, where we're doing men's somatic embodiment practices, yoga, and meditation. That's only a 60-minute class on Wednesday mornings, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. So Wednesday mornings is practice, just get in our body, breath, yoga, meditation. Thursday afternoon is no movement, but it's literally just an online men's group,
right,
for about 120 minutes. And then the program we have offering right now is the 6-month men's coach training.
And okay, wonderful. And more information they can find on wisdomwork.com, Men's Wisdom Work.
Men's Wisdom Work. I also, I have a whole client base. I do one-on-one deep work for men. In whatever realm men want to work, but it usually has something to do with confidence, intimacy, relationality, and in living a purposeful life.
Wonderful.
So feel free to send me an email through the site,
yeah.
Zat@menswisdomwork.com, Zat@menswisdomwork.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. And lastly, a question came in a bit late, but what are some of the things we can do to start to pay attention to, or what are some of the things we can pay attention to in ourselves to start to notice the unhelpful patterns of masculinity and femininity inside ourselves? Like quick kind of fire tips.
Honestly, it's really more based on you. It's more based on what are your habits and patterns that create disruption in your relationships, that create rupture, that create disconnection with your child or your parent or your friend or your family. It's not really kind of this general thing. It's more of like, what is your programming? What are your habits? And then we can bring in these different lenses around masculinity and begin to work with you. So if someone wants to send me a specific question around an issue that they're having, I'm happy to answer that. But I would say there's not really a blanket statement. Sure, there's all kinds of things: integrity, respect, honoring of life, being a more present man, like all kinds of things that can give tips and ideas. But it really is more of a very specific thing based on what your challenges are.
I like that. Good answer. Zat Baraka, thank you so much.
Bro.
It's been such a pleasure
Mark.
having you on. Oh,
Thank you
Feel
so
It
much
Friday.
for having me.
Oh, it's been great. Thank you.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
Brother.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
What have we had from today? The sacred presence in self is important, and your own viewpoint, your own presence, your own atma, your own center of self is your compass, is your direction. Nobody else can tell you what you need or who you are. It's for us, ourselves, to sit courageously within the presence of the light and the sound of creation, and to allow it to guide us through our curiosity of it, through our curiosity and authenticity of presence, whatever that is for you. So thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful week. I will see you in a week's time. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be space and to share with such luminaries as we have on the show. Thank you so much.